Every monster has an origin story. Every tyrant starts somewhere. But before Adolf Hitler became the most feared name in history, before the swastika flew over an empire, he was nothing. A non-entity. A face in the crowd that nobody bothered to remember. The year is 1909. The city is Vienna, the glittering capital of the vast Austro-Hungarian Empire. But in the shadows of the opera houses and the imperial palaces, a young man drifts. He sleeps on park benches, scavenges for food, and finds refuge in crowded, filthy flophouses. This is the pathetic, desperate world of Adolf Hitler, an ambitious but utterly failed artist. Twice, he had the audacity to apply to the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts. Twice, he was rejected. The judges saw nothing remarkable. They saw only mediocrity. The humiliation was a wound that never healed. The rejection didn't inspire him to improve. It bred a corrosive, burning resentment. He saw the world not as a challenge to overcome, but as a conspiracy designed to keep him in the gutter. His poverty, his failure, it was everyone else's fault. He spent these dark, cold years not just surviving, but soaking up the poisonous ideas swirling through the city's underbelly. Radical nationalism, German supremacy, and a blinding, psychotic hatred for the Jews, whom he began to view as the root of all his personal failures and the nation's problems. For years, he was just a nameless, starving man with a nameless, starving hate. A failed man who found solace in the most toxic of ideologies. But then destiny, in the cruelest of twists, offered the forgotten man an escape. It offered him war. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 was not a tragedy to Hitler. It was a salvation. He wasn't even a German citizen, but he volunteered immediately for the Bavarian army. Finally, a uniform. Finally, a purpose. He had been a vagrant without a country. Now, he belonged to something immense. For 4 years, Corporal Hitler was a model soldier. He was a regimental runner. A dangerous job dodging shells and bullets to deliver messages across the hellish front lines. He was brave, dutiful, and he was twice awarded the Iron Cross. The trenches were his home. The army was his family. He didn't fight to return to a life. He fought to keep this life. The war gave him everything the cold streets of Vienna had denied him. Structure, camaraderie, and a profound, exhilarating sense of belonging. The front was his true birthplace. But in 1918, the salvation shattered. Germany was defeated. When he heard the news of the armistice while recovering in a military hospital, he was hysterical. He wept not out of sadness for the casualties, but out of pure, unadulterated fury that his cause had been betrayed by those at home. He returned to a broken, humiliated Germany obsessed with a singular, violent certainty. The war was not lost on the battlefield. It was lost by traitors, communists, and Jews, who had stabbed the army in the back. The invisible man of Vienna now had a name for his enemies and a mission born of rage. He would take revenge for a war he never accepted was over. Back in Munich, destiny placed him in a role perfectly suited to his festering rage. An army intelligence agent tasked with monitoring small political groups. One group caught his attention: the tiny, radical German Workers' Party. This was the moment the failed artist found his true, terrifying craft. He discovered his one true talent, the horrifying, hypnotic power of his own voice. He wasn't an eloquent statesman, but he was electric. He could take the despair, the confusion, and the poverty of the post-war masses and forge it into focused, directed hatred. His speeches weren't debates. They were primal, aggressive rallies that turned listeners into fanatics. People weren't just listening. They were pledging their very souls to his cause. He quickly took over and renamed the group the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Nazis, and their symbol, the swastika, became a banner of defiance and promised supremacy. In 1923, he attempted a crude, failed coup, the Beer Hall Putsch. He was arrested, tried, and imprisoned. But this failure was, paradoxically, his triumph. In jail, he wrote his manifesto, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. He emerged not as a defeated rabble-rouser, but as a martyr with a chilling grand vision for a racially pure empire. He realized street brawls and small coups wouldn't win. He would use the system against itself. He would climb the ladder of democracy, then kick it out from under the entire German nation. The Great Depression struck Germany with devastating force, and Hitler provided the desperate people with the most tempting of narcotics. Someone to blame. His party's popularity exploded. The political establishment, blinded by their own arrogance, believed they could control him. They thought they could use his popularity and then discard him. They were wrong. The unthinkable happened. The former homeless dropout, the failed artist, the furious veteran, was appointed Chancellor of Germany. The power he craved in those cold Vienna streets was now legally his. The transformation from nobody to monster was complete. From that moment on, his actions were a relentless march toward utter destruction. The burning of the Reichstag, the quick silencing of all opposition, the terrifying Nuremberg laws stripping rights from Jewish citizens, the endless, mesmerizing roar of his mass rallies. The world watched as Germany began to rebuild its army, driven by Hitler's megalomania and fueled by the industrial-scale hatred he had carefully nurtured for decades. It wasn't just Germany he wanted. It was the world. The story of Adolf Hitler is a terrifying 20-minute journey that reminds us of the most dangerous truth. Sometimes, the greatest threats to civilization don't come from external invaders, but from the resentful, invisible person in the gutter who is given the absolute power to act on his darkest fantasies. If you want to continue uncovering the world's most compelling and chilling history, subscribe to Legacy Untold and make sure you hit the notification bell for our next video.